Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Ruchi and today I wanted to chat with you a bit about making jumps from job to job or shifts in your career without necessarily having a backup plan or a plan B set up, and also just how to make that transition a little bit more comfortable. I've always kind of been a busybody with an entrepreneurial spirit, and I wanted to get working basically as early as I could legally. So once I got my first job, I started stacking on a few other roles, and while I had periods where I was working multiple jobs and then I had periods where I had kind of like my main thing and then a side hustle, there have definitely been points along my professional trajectory where I've left a role not necessarily having something else lined up. And while that can induce a lot of stress or uncertainty or anxiety, consciously or subconsciously, I feel like I kind of instilled these practices along the way that made it a lot easier to make those transitions and feel good about them in the process. I thought I'd chat a little bit more about my experiences over the years and what they've taught me and lessons that might help you in the case that you want to leave the current role that you're in and you're thinking about next steps, or you just want to make a career shift and want to see how you can be best prepared. And mostly I think it's just important to have more open conversations about taking control of your financial and professional situation and avoiding having your life happen to you, but instead kind of taking the reins and allowing yourself to make decisions that pivot you or guide you in the way that you want to go. So I think one big umbrella factor that affects kind of any and everything that has to do with quitting a job without another one lined up or just feeling a little bit better about a career shift at any point in your life is embracing uncertainty. One thing that I think we as humans often do is hold back from making decisions because we're uncertain about what the outcome might be and we don't feel at ease about the unknown. I think it's key here to also play devil's advocate and consider what the opposite outcome could be. You could choose to stay in a job or in a role at a company for an extended period of time, and then something like layoffs or a worldwide pandemic could happen where uncertainty becomes a lot more apparent in an otherwise stable position that you thought you were in. It's important to also consider that we are ever changing. Our interests, our passions, our needs, our desires, they all continue to change over time. So who you are when you get a particular role or job at age 20 will absolutely not be the same person that you are at the age of 40. It is key to have confidence in your ability to be agile and your ability to adapt, and know that no matter the circumstance, no matter the outcome, you will find a way to work things out. It's all going to be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. And I know it sounds like a cliche, I know it sounds kind of flowery and fluffy, but things do find a way to work themselves out one way or another. Now, the outcome might be a little bit different than what we had imagined would happen or what we'd expected to happen, but in the end, whatever does happen, I believe, happens for a reason. So it's a matter of finding the silver linings along the way and also having confidence and faith in yourself to know that you will figure things out no matter what the outcome is, and you will make the best of the situation. It's important to just roll with the punches, keep a positive, optimistic outlook, and know that whatever happens, whether it's what you expected or not, is something that you will be able to handle. I just think that allowing uncertainty to win and overrule your desire can completely rob you of the life that you've dreamt of having or truly that you deserve to have. So being more open to uncertainty and having more of a positive approach to it can do wonders for your trajectory. Considering the world that we live in, where money is a very key resource, another thing I would mention is building a financial safety net. There's obviously a lot of discourse out there in terms of what the right number is to have saved in your bank account for a rainy day, or in the case that you decide to make a career switch or want to have an eat, pray, love experience in your life. But I definitely don't think this is a one-size-fits-all situation. It's really important to look inward and just kind of look at how you live your life, look at your standard of living, see what you're willing to sacrifice versus what you're not, and that will help you determine what a healthy number is to have in savings. Overall though, I'd say having at least 6 to 12 months saved up of living expenses can be really good because it takes the edge off of having to find something right away when you decide to make a career switch or leave a job in the case that you don't have something lined up for right after. That's of course more general. That absolutely doesn't mean that if you have a certain number saved up, you have to blow through all of it in the time that you were transitioning. But obviously the more you have saved up, the more room you'll have to breathe. And some tips on how to build on those savings include automated savings. So whether that means putting away a certain amount while you are working so that you can keep building on those savings passively, or investing again in a way that still feels comfortable to you and approachable, not in a way that you are stretching yourself too thin, but again allows you to passively grow the money that you have saved to use on a rainy day, or even just as easy as cutting unnecessary expenses. If you've stacked on all of these subscriptions for apps and different platforms that you don't really use or don't need, start there, reduce those expenses, and you'll find that you have a lot more money to either put into savings or use for things that you actually need to spend your money on. It's often very easy to lose track of how our incoming and outgoing cash flow is looking, but when we put a little bit more time and attention to looking into our expenses, we get a lot more clarity of the bigger picture, which in turn gives us more control over our financial situation. Another thing that I briefly touched on before is living within your means. So knowing the difference between the needs and the wants, as well as when to prioritize the difference. I'm someone who loves cafe culture. I love going to my workout classes, but I am also someone who loves romanticizing routines at home. And over the years, as I've transitioned through different roles or even just tried to have more control over my finances, I realized that going out every single day and buying an overpriced coffee that probably would have tasted better if I made at home isn't the best use of my money. And instead, I could put that money towards something else or even just avoid spending it altogether, have it saved for a rainy day, and also allow myself the joy of having a routine that I take part in. Now, I know there are tons of ways to duplicate a hot Pilates class at home, and while I think they're absolutely amazing, I'm also someone who prioritizes the social aspect of going to workout classes. Working for myself, I don't necessarily have coworkers, I don't necessarily work in an office space, so these workout classes allow me to socialize with like-minded people and also build on my network. So I personally see that as something that is worth prioritizing. And again, it is not necessarily a need, but it's something that I prioritize, so I allow myself the opportunity to take part in these while sacrificing other things that I'm okay without. I'm also not a big shopper, so that's definitely helped my bank account over the years. If you are someone who's easily swayed by all of the ads and all of the new campaigns that come out for products, maybe follow less tempting accounts on social media, or don't gallivant in the mall as much to avoid tempting yourself, it's these little changes that will make having control over your finances while also increasing your freedom a lot easier. I think it's also really important to consider the power of delayed gratification. We live in a world where short-term gratification and immediate dopamine hits are so common. It is really important to know that just because you want something doesn't mean you have to have it right then and there. In fact, the harder you work for something makes it much more rewarding. If you have millions of dollars in your bank account and you're able to buy a new Chanel bag every single day, it obviously knocks the novelty down of all of these Chanel bags, making your value for these material items otherwise obsolete. The harder we have to work for something, or the more we are able to put off those cravings, even if it's just as simple as an overpriced latte. Delaying the gratification a little bit more and treating things more as a reward system, especially in a transitory period, makes things feel a lot more special and more like a treat. Just being more thoughtful about your spending choices and treating things as treats can make even the mundane feel a lot more special. There's obviously tons of talk around diversifying your income sources, and that is definitely something that can contribute to just feeling a little bit more comfortable and prepared to make a career switch without necessarily having something lined up. Because by avoiding putting all of your eggs in one basket, whether that is one job or one career path, and kind of diversifying the ways that you make money, whether it's through side hustles, whether it's through investing, you are allowing yourself, again, more freedom to make different choices because you don't have just one stream of income. And in the case that you decide to leave one, but you have 3 sources of income, you still have money coming in to allow you more options, flexibility, and choice. In the times that I've worked more conventional jobs, I've also been working on my makeup business and content creation, and they definitely helped diversify my income sources over the years. And ironically enough, those two are what I do full-time today. So the more time that you put into your side hustles or whatever income sources you have to diversify your incoming cash flow, the more money they will make you. And obviously the more flexibility they'll allow you. And then going back to mindset, I think it's also extremely important to evaluate risk before quitting. So in terms of the finances, I think it is important to consider, do you actually have enough to make that career change without having to worry constantly about rushing into another role because you don't have enough saved up? You definitely want to be in a comfortable position before making any big decisions and want to make sure that you're not doing something just out of emotionality, but are thinking with a wise mind as well. Another thing to consider is, what are your next steps? Now, while I said you need to embrace uncertainty and obviously go with the flow, it is important to also have a general idea of what you're taking that time to do. Are you taking that time to focus more on your health and repair your mind and body and soul and spirit? Or are you feeling called to travel because you spent so much of your life in school and climbing the corporate ladder? Or are you going back to school because you want to sharpen your skill set and pivot industries? Just having a general idea of what you hope to do with your time is very important, because like I mentioned in my last video, some may agree, some may not, but more than money, I believe time is the most precious resource, and it's really important to be cognizant of how you're spending yours. Be mindful of the fact that while you can make a career switch at any time in your life, or you can choose to step away from the hustle of your professional life, I think it is important to consider how you're going to spend that time when you do so. And again, what's the worst case scenario that could come out of this, and how are you willing to handle it, or how are you feeling prepared to handle it? Do you feel like it's something that you could take on? In the case that you decide to travel, and then once you're home, you want to go back to work, but you can't seem to find a job in your field, what would your game plan be then? In the case that you decide to go back to school, and by the time you're done, there aren't many roles in that industry, what would your next steps be then? Having a completely structured, step-by-step game plan may not necessarily be what works for you or what you have in mind at this point, but just a general direction will again give you a lot more peace of mind, and it will make this whole period a lot more rewarding for you. Throughout my professional experiences over time, I've definitely learned that there are so many options out there for the jobs, the career paths that you can take, and there is always something out out there for you. Whether that comes packaged as a job working for a company, or it leads you down the path of entrepreneurship to make a role that is completely suited to you, your needs, and your desires for this lifetime. Whatever that might be, none of us really have the answers of how our lives will unfold. We simply have to have the will and the grit to keep it moving. So I think it's key to consider the things that we have control of, which is generally our outlook and our overall behavior as to how we transition through these valleys and peaks, and then what we don't have control over. So the external circumstances, like the job market, these are all things that we cannot make decisions around because we don't foresee them. But the things that we can foresee are how we build ourselves up to navigate situations like this. So take control of your finances and always try to prioritize seeing the reward of being more responsible in these situations, and not being frugal necessarily, but just again being more aware in the case that you want to make a switch later on in life and you don't have to hold yourself back from the life that you want to live simply because you didn't prepare for it earlier, even though you have the opportunity. The times that I have left roles in the past without necessarily having something lined up have actually taught me so much about myself and the overall world of work. It's taught me how to be a lot more opportunistic and see the chances for growth in any and every circumstance. It's also taught me to have a lot more faith in myself, my capabilities. While I've taken these leaps of faith and essentially just taken risks on myself, it's taught me so much more about the value of life. This is not financial advice for you to just be reckless and quit your job without any planning. I hope this video serves as a reminder that there is a lot of thought and planning that has to go in before making a decision like leaving a job, especially without another one lined up. But I am a big advocate of taking control of your life, turning it into one that you absolutely love if it's not already that, and just knowing that you have the control to do so. You have the power to do so. This life, this reality that we live in is entirely up to us. We have the power to make it as close to what we want or as far from our desires. So it really just is about planning for freedom, whether that's the freedom to use your time as you please, use your money as you please, basically whatever you prioritize in your life. I hope that you are setting your life up to allow you to enjoy those things. That's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, especially if you're in a period of transition. I know these unprecedented times can be a lot on our mental and physical, but I think it's really important to focus on the beautiful opportunity that this brings to, again, build a life of your dreams. If you did enjoy, hit that thumbs up button and feel free to subscribe so you don't miss my next one. I would love to see you back here, and until next time, take care.